Welcome to AI Verdict. Look, if you're anything like me, you've probably been seeing Claude 5 absolutely everywhere lately. All over Reddit, buried in leaked logs, popping up across Twitter. But honestly, trying to figure out what's actual reality versus what's just pure hype, it can be pretty frustrating. Every other source seems to just be guessing or recycling the same old rumors. So for this explainer, we're skipping all that noise. We are diving straight into the official system cards, the real prediction markets, and the credible leaks to bring you the facts. Let's break down exactly what you need to know about the Claude 5 family, starting with the biggest secret Anthropic is holding on to.
All right, let's just dive right in and address the elephant in the room, the biggest secret out there that nobody really seems to be talking about. The model that actually has Anthropic spooked? It's not some standard incremental update, and honestly, it might not even be called Opus 5. We're talking about a massive, heavily guardrailed leap in capability that's known internally as Mythos. It's an entirely different beast, and it is completely shifting the landscape of what we thought was coming next.
But hey, before we get completely carried away, let's ground ourselves for a second. Do you remember the Fennec incident from back in February 2026? Developers were digging through Google's cloud logs and spotted a build vividly labeled Claude Sonnet 5 with the codename Fennec. And of course, the internet did what the internet does. It completely lost its mind, expecting an immediate, surprise launch. Well, it turned out to be a massive false alarm. It was literally just Sonnet 4.6 wearing a different label. So this teaches us a really vital lesson. While the leaks often point us in the right direction, those highly specific release date rumors, they are notoriously shaky.
Okay, so to truly understand where Anthropic is taking us, we kind of need to look at their current lineup. Think of it like a Loxing roster. It's a three-tier family. Up at the top, you've got Opus, which is the brilliant but somewhat slow and expensive heavy hitter. In the middle sits Sonnet. That's the mid-tier workhorse that most of us actually use day to day. And down at the bottom is Haiku, the fast, cheap, lightweight model meant for high-volume jobs. Now, their historical cadence is absolutely key here. When Sonnet 4.6 launched with a 1 million token context window, it matched the older Opus 4.5 in raw capability, but it remarkably stayed at its same lower price tier. That playbook, giving us more power at a much lower cost, is exactly what you need to keep in mind as we look toward Claude 5.
And that historical cadence actually builds a timeline we can trust. So, when are we getting this thing? Well, Anthropic typically ships a major model every 2 to 3 months, pretty much like clockwork. With Opus 4.7 landing in April 2026, just doing the basic calendar math points to Sonnet 5 arriving right around mid-2026, followed closely by Opus 5 in the late summer or early fall. And what's super compelling is that independent analysts and AI prediction markets, where people are actually betting real money, they completely agree with this. They're heavily betting on a Q2 to Q3 2026 window. So, for sure, that's a time frame we need to be watching.
Now, a lot of folks are expecting Claude 5 to just be a nice, tidy little step up the ladder, but the leaks point to a project internally named Mythos, sometimes also called Capybara. Anthropic considers this a massive step change in capability, not just an increment, a real leap. The leaks specifically highlight that Mythos is so wildly ahead of other AI models in its cyber capabilities that the safety team literally had to lock the doors and heavily guardrail it away from the public. So the crucial takeaway here is this. The real question isn't just how good Opus 5 is. The real question is how much of this raw Mythos power Anthropic is actually going to let you and me touch.
And that brings us to the specs. While the exact parameter counts are still kind of a mystery, Opus 5 is guaranteed to be a massive frontier model, sitting well above current giants like Meta's 405 billion parameter Llama 3.1. But honestly, raw size isn't the real headline here, it's the memory. While Sonnet 5 is expected to keep its already massive 1 million token window, the rumors suggest Opus 5, or Mythos, could leap to a staggering 5 million token context window. I mean, that absolutely dwarfs Gemini 3 and OpenAI's GPT-4.1, which only reached a 1 million token limit.
But let's be real, what does a 5 million token limit actually mean for you in the real world? Forget the raw specs for a second and just think about your workflow. With 5 million tokens, you could feed the AI entire enterprise codebases, massive stacks of dense legal contracts, or literally hours and hours of video transcripts, all in a single shot. It holds and processes the whole shebang at once. It's not just a nice memory upgrade, it fundamentally changes the sheer scale of problems you can hand over to an AI. And all that massive memory, it feeds directly into its reasoning and coding abilities. Leaked figures actually place Sonnet 5 at an incredible 82% on the SWE-verified coding benchmark. That would easily be the highest of any model out there right now. Keep in mind, the previous Sonnet was already outperforming older Opus models. So if Sonnet 5 is hitting 82%, Opus 5 is expected to push straight into PhD-level reasoning.
We are moving way past simple autocomplete and into an era where the model can hold an incredibly hard, multi-layered problem in its head and actively work through it. So once a model can reason that well, what's the natural next step? You let it act. Claude 5 is transitioning from a passive chatbot that just sits there waiting for your instructions to an active colleague taking real initiative. We're looking at genuinely agentic behavior here. Rumors point to a model that can spawn its own subagents, seamlessly plan out complex multi-step workflows, and utilize a dev team mode to parallelize coding tasks. Some reports even suggest it could proactively manage your inbox and calendar. It's a total paradigm shift in how we're going to interact with these tools.
Now, remember that Anthropic playbook I mentioned earlier? Well, here it is in full swing again. Industry insiders fully expect Sonnet 5 to match or even beat Opus 4.5's capabilities. But, and this is the massive part, it'll do so while running at roughly half the inference cost. Delivering a full tier of extra power while aggressively bringing those costs down, that is exactly what makes running these models at real enterprise scale actually affordable. It's not just a technical victory, guys, it is an economic game changer.
Of course, we can't look at these numbers in a vacuum, right? Let's look at the competition and see how Claude 5 stacks up. First up, OpenAI. With GPT 5.4 and its Codex variant laying out their own massive agentic workflows, Claude 5 isn't punching down, it is trading blows with OpenAI at the exact same altitude. Then there's Google. Gemini 3 currently leads a lot of public benchmarks with deep reasoning and strong math, but Claude 5's strategy isn't a head-on collision. It aims to dominate through that massive context size and its independent cloud access across AWS and Azure, whereas Gemini is pretty much locked into Google's ecosystem. Finally, against open-source models like Meta's Llama 3.1 and Devastral 2, Claude is focusing heavily on enterprise trust and polish, rather than getting dragged into an open-source pricing war.
Okay, bringing it all back home, what does this actually mean for your day-to-day? Let's break it down real quick. If you are a developer, Anthropic's API makes migration a simple swap, not a massive rewrite. And an 80% plus real-world bug fix rate, that's going to save you hours every single week. If you're a business, those huge context windows and dropping costs make things like large-scale contract analysis and really deep customer support highly viable overnight. And for regular users, you can look forward to context-aware desktop integration where Claude actually understands what you're working on locally instead of just living inside a browser tab.
But listen, we absolutely have to talk about the risks. I wouldn't be doing my job with this explainer if we skipped this part. Let's call back to those Mythos cyber warnings for a second. Think about this. If the AI can find and write software exploits faster than you can patch them, you must budget for strict audits before adoption. Seriously, if the model is that good at coding, it's that good at finding vulnerabilities. Businesses absolutely must level up their security review processes and set strict policies right now, before this model arrives, not as some frantic afterthought once something breaks.
And honestly, that leaves us with this really fascinating tension. On the one hand, we have this enormous, totally unprecedented capability on the horizon, but on the other, we have Anthropic's very deliberate, heavily guardrailed caution. It kind of makes you wonder what's truly possible and what's actually safely permissible. So I want to ask you directly, does the heavily guarded power of Mythos make you more excited for what Claude 5 can do for your workflows, or does it make you a little more nervous about its sheer capabilities? Think about that, and definitely feel free to leave your thoughts below. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you